Hey everybody, David Carr. Listen, this is a bit of a different edit for you today. I shot a wedding recently, and I was trying to get the shot of the groom putting the ring on the bride's finger, and I did get this shot, but you can't see the ring because of the angle I was at, and I couldn't get any closer because of the way things were configured. And so I did the best I could, but one thing I did was I took a safety shot of just the ring on her finger after he had placed it, and we're going to combine the two together and kind of make one beautiful shot out of it. Now, you might think it's cheating a little bit to do that, especially for a wedding photo, but you know what? In the end, it looks great. It looks like authentic, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. So let's dive in. All right, so here is the image in Lightroom, and I've already done some of my basic edits over here with tonality and white balance and things like that. So it looks pretty good to me. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so when I look at this ring, I feel like it's not quite as sharp as I want it to be. I'm going to zoom in here. And, it's not that it's not sharp, it's just a little hazy. And I don't really like that because when I zoom out, it just kind of loses some of the detail. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up my sharpening a good bit and see what that does. And it definitely helps, but we're probably going to want to do something in the way of working on the contrast and maybe the dehazing of just the ring itself. So I'm going to bring up one of my adjustment brush tools, and we're going to go to dehaze. And maybe I'll pull up the contrast a little bit. We're going to dehaze and add some contrast and just see what happens if we paint that over the ring a little bit. I'm just trying to bring out more detail in the stones themselves. Painting over it, it's not doing a tremendous amount, but I'm going to pull that contrast up a little bit, actually pull it back. I'm going to bring the blacks down. That starts to add a little bit more detail. And then we'll add some texture. When I add texture, it really does start to show a lot of the detail within the ring. And when I pull back, I actually like that. I think it looks pretty good. It's a very subtle difference, but I wanted to do that just to really make it look like that ring is in sharp, perfect focus. And it really looks better to me now. And then we'll go to, so what we have to do in this situation like this is I need a donor image. I need an image that's going to give me the actual shot of the ring that we want in the photo, the one that I would have hoped to have seen. I wanted to see the wedding band just, right in front of his finger as he's slipping it on her finger. And it's not there. So it's hidden, and that's fine, but we're going to just kind of add it in and show you what happens here. So what I'll do, I'm going to look through, I have several other images here. I wanted to see if there was any image that would work better, and clearly that one doesn't work better, and clearly that one doesn't work better, and nor that one. So we go to this one, and voila, there is the wedding band after he's placed it on her finger. And this is a great shot in the sense, and I don't mean that in a boasting kind of way, but it's a good shot showing the ring on her finger, but you can see her pinky is blocking the engagement ring now, the big rock, and I kind of want to show the whole deal, and I really want to see him putting the ring on her finger. And so we just didn't get that in the original shot, so we're going to blend these two together. But one thing I'm noticing here on this shot is it's also a little bit soft. It's softer than the other one. There's probably a little bit of motion blur going on, and I think that is what's happening here. So I'm going to take that same little configuration of tool here with the dehaze up, the contrast, and probably pull the texture up again. And I'm just going to paint that over and see if we can make this appear to be sharper. It may not actually be sharper, but you can kind of trick the mind into thinking that you got a sharper photo than you did. So we'll do that, and then we'll pull up I'm going to pull up the sharpness here and see what it does. And it's definitely helping. It's definitely helping make the ring stand out as being more sharp. And I am pushing the limits on these sliders. You can kind of do that when you're in an adjustment brush. Let's see, pull the noise up a little bit. It just felt like it was a little bit of noise in it. Of course, this is going to be such a small part of the other photo. So we'll back up and see, did that make it look much sharper and cleaner? And really, we could sharpen the entire photo a lot because we're not even going to use any of the rest of this photo. We're really only going to use the ring. And so what I'll do, I'm going to pull the sharpening all the way up. That really does make it appear to be sharper than it really is. I like that. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to open this image and this image in Photoshop. So we'll start by clicking Command E. And there it is in Photoshop, ready to go. But we're going to go back into Lightroom and grab that other image. This one here, we'll click Command E, and that opens it up in Photoshop. So now we're going to take this ring and we're going to place it in this image here. So I'll show you how to do that. What we're going to do, I'm going to click the letter M, and that's going to bring up the marquee tool. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I just typically do this out of habit. I go marquee tool, drag a rectangle over the ring, and you can get a decent amount of it, and you'll see why. There's a lot of excess, but you'll see why I'm doing this. I'm going to click Command C, and that is going to copy it. Now I'm going to go back to the other image, the one that we want to paste that onto, and I'm going to click Command V, as in Virginia or Victor or whatever the symbol is. And when we click Command V, it's going to paste that onto this image. I'm going to click the letter V now, the V key, and now I can move this around and kind of figure out where I want it. And size-wise, it's pretty good. It's pretty on point. The size of her finger here is probably similar to the size of her finger here. It might be a little bit larger here. So what I'll do is I'm going to shrink that down just a little bit. And I'm just kind of using some artistic license to figure out what's going to look right. It takes a little bit of working it. The ring's probably going to end up somewhere around here. I might tilt it a little bit like this. But one way you can kind of really strategically place it is go over to opacity down here. And we're going to turn the opacity down to like 50%. And when we do that, it's going to allow us to see through this layer, and we can kind of see what's behind it and figure out exactly where we want to place the ring. I'm not going to show the entire ring because a lot of it sits behind his finger, but I just want to have a hint of it there, and I think it will look really nice. So we're going to go like this, and we'll twist it a little bit, and because I think as he's sliding it on her finger, it's probably twisted a little bit more this way. Who knows? But just again, using some artistic, creative license to figure out what I want to do. That's the goal here. So I'm going to just kind of play with it in this position here. So I'll turn my opacity back all the way up to 100%. And there's the ring. And you can see that the color is a little off. The white balance and the skin tone is different in this shot than it is in this one. This is a little more pink. This is a little more green. The tint's a little different. But we're not going to worry too much about that because the ring is the only thing that matters at this point. This is the only thing that's going to end up in this image when we're finished. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use what's called a layer mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Option, hold the Option key down, and I'm going to click this icon right down here, which is for a layer mask. And when we do this, it hides that image. It hides that layer. That layer is still there. You can see here, but there's the layer, and it's hidden behind what's called a layer mask. So it's there. Now it's up to me to paint it in there. And this is really cool. This is a great way to do this. So what we'll do, I'm going to click the B as in boy key, and it's going to bring up the brush tool. And my brush is incredibly small right now, so we're going to increase the size of it. But I'm going to zoom in too, because I know that really this is the only area that's going to matter. And watch what happens when I start to paint. And you want to make sure over here that this square is white at first. And we're going to start to paint. And look at this. The ring starts to show up. It starts to show up. And I'm kind of painting around, his fingernail here. And it's not perfect. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect yet. You can see the ring is showing up. And I'm going to kind of just go a little out of bounds here, kind of put too much of it in there, and you'll see what I can do in a second. Now I'll back up. I'm going to zoom back out and see just like in general, do I like what I'm seeing as far as where the ring is? And I like it. I think it's pretty good. What I might do, I'm going to click the V key, V as in Victor, and I'm going to drag this forward a little bit and click Return. And now we'll click B again for the brush, and we're going to just play around here. I'm going to shrink the brush size down. I'm going to try to add just a little bit more of the ring in front of his fingernail there. And you can see all this mess over here. Don't worry about that right now. That's going to get dealt with. But what we're going to do now, we're just kind of trying to paint it in a way that it looks like it's legitimately right there. And that's pretty good. If you back up and kind of forget about some of the mess underneath it here and on top of it, that looks pretty authentic to me. and we're going to fine tune it now. So what I'll do, I'm going to click the X key. Now that we're in the brush tool, I'll click the X key, and you'll see over here that this square turns black when I click the X key. And what this allows me to do now is go back and sort of unpaint some stuff. So I can kind of clean that line up a little bit there. And this is where I can clean up all of this mess. And you see what it's doing? It's erasing that part. I'm going to increase my brush size a little, but it's erasing that part that kind of where I spilled over a little bit. And this is a time to get really micro focused, zoom way in and paint around. And sometimes you might want to go up and adjust the hardness of your brush. So I'm going to go to like 68. I just try to move over a little bit to where it's a harder edge brush. And that way, when we meet up with the line of the ring, it's really going to create a clean edit. And we're going to just go down like this and this. And, it's just kind of cleaning all this mess up. And we're literally just pasting the ring in the place that we want it and then isolating the ring. There are several ways you can do this. You could actually just isolate the ring in the layer and literally just drag the ring and only the ring over. But I kind of like to do it this way because I can control my edges a little bit. I can go back and kind of clean it up if it's looking a little bit pasted on. Sometimes things like this they'll look pasted on. I mean, because they are, but they'll look too obviously pasted on. So I'm going to click X again, bring me back to the white square, which allows me to paint some more. I'm going to paint a little bit more right here in, just painting the ring in. And sometimes your edges, you'll try to go for a straight edge and you'll kind of miss it a little bit. But I'm just going to paint that in there, paint that there. And every now and then it's really good to just back all the way up and see, does it look real? And look at that. I mean, I just feel like that looks pretty authentic. The only thing I'm seeing now that's kind of throwing me off is that his finger is really out of focus here. And then all of a sudden it gets in focus. So we're going to have to figure out how we want to fix that. So one thing we can do is we can go back and bring some of his finger back into the shot by clicking X, and we're going to increase the softness or decrease the hardness, I should say, of our brush. I'll go down to like 15%. And we're going to kind of paint some of that finger back in. But when we paint it back in, it adds some of that blur back in. But the problem is when it does that, it also adds, some of the, like the ring is kind of under there. And so you just have to play around with it and see if it's looking real, if it's looking believable. And then we'll back up. And that's looking pretty good. There might be there's kind of a little bit of a something here I don't really love. So I'm going to click X again and maybe paint more in there and just see if painting more of the ring in helps that. And you're going to really have to put your artist hat on and think about like what you're doing and do it with, you're just going to want to be calculated in how you do this. Because otherwise things they'll look too clinical, and you want it to look really authentic. And that looks pretty good to me. I keep zooming in and out. I keep playing around with it. I just kind of want to see. Now, one thing I will do sometimes at this point, because I still want to see this be a little bit more of a blurry edge between his finger and the ring, because it's blurry here. And the depth of field is really shallow with this lens. So what I'll do, I'm going to click X again. And actually, let me undo that. I'm going to just go right back there, back up. I don't like this line right here. And y'all, I'm just working this. This is such a small detail. Look, you can see the pixels now. So, we are hyper focused. When you get way away from it, you don't see it, but I just really like to have clean lines and clean areas like this. So I will click click X. I just don't like that it does that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm happy with where the ring is. So I'm going to merge these layers by clicking Shift Command E, and it merges them all into one layer. So now I can't move the ring. It's solid. It's all one layer. But now it allows me to take something like my spot healing brush tool, shrink the brush way down, and just paint over that little line. And it kind of gets rid of that. And it's going to be better. It's going to look better. It's such a minor, whoops, didn't mean to do that. It's such a minor detail. I'm going to click the S key and bring up my clone stamp tool. I'm going to grab some of this material here and paint it in. Not liking the way that looks, but I'm going to just maybe increase the brush size a little bit. Brush that in. Yeah, it's not great. We're going to bring our opacity down, and we'll go like this. Just trying to clean that up. I just want this whole area to look really, really nice. And I don't want anything to look like it's been, crazy edited. I want it to look pretty authentic. And that really looks pretty nice to me now. So what I'm going to do, last but not least, I want to blur this area here. So we'll go over here to our blur tool, which is right here. And I'm just going to paint one swipe over this, and it kind of, see how it just kind of blurs that a little bit just on that edge. And now it just makes it look like the finger is out of focus. The ring is more in focus. And I don't know about you, but when I look at that, I think it looks pretty awesome. I could go in now. I feel like because the color tone was a little different in that other image, I could maybe warm this up a little bit, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to put this back in Lightroom and just see what I feel about it once I get it in Lightroom, and we'll kind of finish the photo there. So we're going to click Command S. It's going to take us back into Lightroom, and that image should show up any second now. Okay, and there it is. So it looks pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with this image, and I think what I'm going to do is just do a little bit of cropping on it. I want to kind of get a little closer in on the image, and let's do this. Maybe go like that. I do like seeing the hand here of the officiant, just a little bit of it. I just kind of like that. You can kind of tell that it's a hand, but you don't really know exactly what's going on. I like that. And with that, I think I'll sign off on it. So I know that was a little bit of a different type of edit, and I got really, really nitpicky about some things there, because once I see things, I can't unsee them, especially when I'm zoomed in like that. But this is a wedding photo. It's something that's very, very precious and very important, and you just want it to be perfect and timeless. And granted, I wish I had taken it perfectly to begin with, but I did the best I could, and I'm glad that I had the images to blend together and actually make a finished image like that. And I could probably work on it a little bit more than I did, but I wanted to give you an idea of what you can do using layer masks. It's pretty special and pretty exciting. So that's all I have for you today. I'll be back with more. Thanks a lot.